There is a raccoon in your backyard right now that knows your house, not in the way that a stray cat wanders into a yard looking for scraps. This one has been there before. It knows the exact path along your fence line, the corner of your deck where you leave things out, and the time of night when your lights go off. And here's the part that's hard to shake. It didn't learn any of that by accident. Today we're talking about raccoons. Specifically, what's actually going on when one keeps showing up in your yard, and why the explanation is so much more interesting than it smells your trash. We're going to walk through 8 things researchers have documented about raccoon behavior that most people have never heard, and by the time we're done, you're going to look at every nighttime visitor to your yard in a completely different way. I want to flag one thing before we get into it. The last point on this list is the one that most people find genuinely hard to believe, because it means that even if you wanted to remove the raccoon's knowledge of your property from the local population, there's a very real chance you legally can't. That's where we're ending, so stay with me. Let's start with something that sounds simple, but isn't. Sign 1. It retraces the exact same path through your yard in the dark, every single time. If you've ever watched a raccoon move through your yard on a camera, you've probably noticed it doesn't wander. It walks a specific route, hits specific spots, and leaves. People assume it's following its nose, basically sniffing its way around like a dog on a leash. But what's actually happening is more structured than that. Raccoons have excellent memories that let them recall routes, landmarks, and specific locations within their home range, and their keen sense of smell assists in navigation by helping them identify familiar scents that form an olfactory map of their environment. So it's not just smell, and it's not just memory. It's both, working together as a system. The raccoon builds what researchers call a cognitive map, a mental model of your property that includes where things are, how they connect, and what order to visit them in. Raccoons with more sophisticated cognitive abilities have been found to have more neural cells in the hippocampus, reinforcing the idea that their learning and memory capacities map onto similar brain systems as those in people. The hippocampus is the part of the brain most associated with spatial navigation and memory. Taxi drivers in London, who frequently use their knowledge of the 25,000 streets in London, also have a larger hippocampal area. The raccoon visiting your yard is running a version of the same system. It has mapped your property, the fence line, the deck, the gap under the gate, and it navigates that map with confidence, even in total darkness, even after weeks away. That consistency of route is the first sign that something deliberate is happening. Because an animal that's just wandering doesn't retrace the same path. An animal that has memorized a space does. Sign 2. It has been timing its visits around your schedule. This one tends to catch people off guard. Most of us assume a raccoon shows up when it's hungry and the coast looks clear. The idea that it might be factoring your specific schedule into that decision feels like a stretch. But research on related nocturnal mesocarnivores in urban environments suggests it's exactly what's happening. Camera trap studies have found that nocturnal animals visiting communal scent marking sites in urban green spaces vary their peak activity times depending on the local environment, with findings indicating they adjust the timing of their visits to minimize disturbance from human activity. In other words, the animal isn't just avoiding humans in general. It's learning the specific windows when humans are and aren't present at a given location and scheduling around those windows. Think about what that requires. The raccoon has to visit your yard enough times, at enough different hours, to build a picture of when you're active and when you're not. It has to retain that information across multiple nights, and then it has to use it to time future visits. That's not instinct in the simple sense. That's learned behavioral scheduling, and it's specific to you and your property. So the raccoon that shows up at 2 a.m. every Tuesday isn't doing that randomly. It's doing that because it has figured out that 2 a.m. on a Tuesday is when your yard is reliably quiet. Sign 3. Your yard has been catalogued in a shared information system you didn't know existed. Here's where it gets genuinely strange, and this is the one I want you to hold on to as we move through the rest of the video, because it changes the scale of everything else we're talking about. Raccoons use communal latrines, specific spots where multiple raccoons return to deposit waste, again and again. Raccoons don't simply deposit their droppings wherever they happen to be. Instead, they often use communal latrines. specific locations where multiple raccoons consistently defecate and urinate. And these latrines serve as olfactory signposts, broadcasting information about the individual's presence, sex, reproductive status, and possibly even social standing. Raccoons create latrines for communal defecation and urination, which serves as a form of territorial marking and communication, and latrines are social hubs transmitting scent-based information. What that means in practice is that when one raccoon spends 3 weeks learning your yard, the scent information it leaves at a communal latrine near your property can influence how other raccoons in the area behave, even raccoons that have never personally visited your house. The information gets shared. The file on your property doesn't belong to one animal. It belongs to the local population. Behavioral ecologists have noted that communal latrines are frequently located at the periphery of a raccoon's territory, validating their role in spatial organization and social hierarchy maintenance. Your yard isn't just being observed, it's being discussed in the only language raccoons have, and that conversation is happening in spots you've probably walked past 100 times without noticing. And that information doesn't stay static. Latrines are typically in flat, wooded areas or on ridges, but scent marking activity and latrine locations can shift seasonally. The file on your property gets updated. New scent gets added as seasons change, as the raccoon's social situation changes, as new animals move through the territory. It's not a one-time observation, it's a living record that gets revised throughout the year. That's the open question I want you to carry forward. If one raccoon's knowledge of your yard can be passed to others through a shared scent system, what does it actually mean to remove a raccoon from your property? We're going to answer that at the end, and the answer involves something most people don't know is even a factor. Sign 4. It can cover nearly 4 miles in a single day just to get back to studying you. People picture raccoons as slow, waddling opportunists. The reality of their movement capacity is a lot more impressive than that. Raccoons can travel up to 6 kilometers, approximately 3.7 miles, in a single day. That's not a casual stroll. That's a deliberate commute, and it means a raccoon that has identified your yard as valuable real estate will put in serious physical effort to keep returning to it. It's an innate behavior of raccoons to travel for 3 to 30 miles to find suitable living conditions. Their territorial instincts are strong and sharp, and the strong homing instincts of raccoons make them travel for miles to come back to a place where they felt comfortable. So the raccoon that keeps showing up isn't just the closest one to your house. It may be one that has specifically decided your yard is worth the travel. It has weighed the options in its territory and concluded that your property is a regular stop. That's a choice, not an accident. And it's backed by the kind of spatial memory and navigation ability that we've already established is genuinely sophisticated. Sign 5. Trapping it and moving it 10 miles away often isn't enough. This is the one that surprises people the most because 10 miles feels like a lot. You've gone to the effort of trapping the animal, driving it across town, releasing it somewhere far away. You've done everything right. And then it comes back. While relocating a raccoon within a kilometer is often ineffective due to their familiarity with the area, some experts suggest that relocation beyond 5 to 10 miles is necessary to prevent their return. But here's the thing, even that distance isn't a guarantee. Even at distances of 16 kilometers, about 10 miles or more, some raccoons have been observed returning to their original capture location, with one animal documented covering more than 18 miles back. A wildlife management study tracking translocated raccoons found that after a transient period lasting on average about 36 days, raccoons often resumed pre-experiment movement behavior, and most animals established new home ranges after translocation, while 3 raccoons moved more than 16 kilometers from their release point back to the original capture location. And the ones that didn't make it all the way back, some of them didn't just settle wherever they landed. They struck out and traveled in entirely new directions, eventually turning up more than 35 miles from where they were released, settling into new denning areas, and in many cases, those new areas were right back near human homes. Because proximity to people isn't a side effect of where raccoons end up, it's something they actively seek out. Sign 6. When relocated raccoons choose a new home, they deliberately pick human neighborhoods. This is the part that reframes everything. The common assumption is that raccoons are in your yard because your yard happens to be in their territory. Move them somewhere else, they'll find a new territory that happens to be away from people. But that's not what the research shows. Many people think they're doing the raccoon a favor by trapping it in a city or suburbs and releasing it into a more natural forest habitat. But a raccoon living in the city was there for a reason. When displaced raccoons establish new home ranges, they consistently gravitate toward human residences, agricultural land, and waterways rather than deep wilderness. The pattern of showing up in human spaces isn't a quirk of one animal's territory, it's a preference for the human environment itself. This adaptability extends to intimate interactions with human infrastructure, and raccoons have been observed taking refuge in a variety of human-made structures, ranging from garages to sheds to chimneys, entrenching their ability to exploit the city as a versatile habitat. What that means is that the raccoon in your yard isn't there by coincidence, and it isn't there because it got confused. It's there because, on some level, being near humans is the strategy. Your house represents food, shelter, predictable patterns, and warmth. The raccoon has assessed that and made a decision. And when you move it somewhere new, it makes the same decision again. If you're finding this as fascinating as I do, hit subscribe. We cover this kind of backyard wildlife behavior regularly, mostly on the raccoon. Drop a comment below too. Have you ever had a raccoon that kept coming back no matter what you tried? I want to know what happened. Sign 7. It likely knows your property better than most of your neighbors do. We've talked about cognitive maps, scent memory, and route learning. But let's put all of that together into what it actually looks like from the raccoon's perspective. Raccoons have excellent memories, enabling them to recall routes, landmarks, and specific locations within their home range. Their keen sense of smell allows them to identify familiar scents that form an olfactory map of their environment. And the combination of spatial memory and sensory cues contributes to their ability to navigate back to familiar territory. So the raccoon visiting your yard has, over multiple nights, built a layered map of your property. It knows the spatial layout, where the fence is, where the gate is, where the gap under the deck is. It knows the scent landmarks, which corner smells like your dog, which spot near the garage smells like last week's trash bag. It knows the temporal patterns, when the lights go off, when the dog stops moving around, when the yard goes quiet. Raccoons with more sophisticated cognitive abilities have been found to have more neural cells in the hippocampus, reinforcing the idea that their learning and memory capacities map onto similar brain systems as those in people. That's not a metaphor. The brain structure that lets a London cab driver memorize 25,000 streets is the same type of structure, scaled to a raccoon's world, that lets the animal in your yard remember the exact route it walked 3 weeks ago and retrace it without hesitation. And here's the thing about that memory. Memory of learned knowledge may fade over time, for example during prolonged periods of disuse, such as over winter. Which means the raccoon's knowledge of your yard isn't permanent, but it does get refreshed every time it comes back. Each visit is both a check-in and an update. It's not just remembering your yard, it's maintaining its knowledge of your yard actively across the whole year. In one study, raccoons continued opening new mechanisms in a puzzle box, even after eating the reward inside, a clear sign of information-seeking behavior, with researchers noting that raccoon intelligence has long featured in folklore, yet scientific research on their cognition remains limited. The animal isn't just solving problems for food, it's solving problems because it finds the information itself rewarding. That drive is exactly what keeps it coming back to your yard, even when there's nothing obvious to eat. Sign 8. In many places, you're legally not allowed to make them forget you. This is the one I mentioned at the start, and it's the one that brings everything together. So you've learned that a raccoon has mapped your yard, timed its visits around your schedule, shared information about your property through communal scent posts, and will travel enormous distances to come back after being relocated. The natural response is, fine, I'll just move it far enough away that none of that matters. But here's the legal reality in many parts of North America. Relocating raccoons is generally discouraged, as it can be stressful and dangerous for the animals, and it is also often illegal. Many states and provinces restrict or outright prohibit the relocation of trapped raccoons, primarily because of disease transmission risk. Raccoons are a primary rabies vector, and moving one from one region to another can spread disease into populations that don't have exposure to it. What that means in practice is this. Once a raccoon has built a detailed cognitive map of your property, once it has deposited that information into the local scent network, once other raccoons in the area have started incorporating your yard into their own mental models, you often cannot legally intervene to break that chain. The knowledge stays in the neighborhood. The file on your house doesn't get deleted. It just keeps getting updated by whoever is passing through. And remember what we established about relocated raccoons choosing human neighborhoods when they settle somewhere new. Even in the cases where relocation is legal and you move the animal far enough that it doesn't come back, the information it left behind in the local latrine network is still there. Another raccoon will pick it up. Another animal will learn your yard. The raccoon that keeps showing up isn't a nuisance that wandered in by chance. It's the current holder of a detailed, regularly updated file on your property. A file that has been built up over months, possibly contributed to by multiple animals, and that exists in a shared information system you can't see, can't access, and in many places can't legally disrupt. That's not a pest problem, that's a relationship. And the raccoon has been maintaining its end of it a lot more carefully than most of us realized. If you want to see more videos like this, feel free to like and subscribe. You will never look at your yard the same way again.